for someone starting off, right? Starting off on this journey, and perhaps they do not or may not have the scale that Standard Chartered may have. What are the foundational steps would you recommend, advise they start doing? Is it, I really like the idea of sunrise, sunset jobs. Is that the method, or is there another, a more simpler first steps that they can start embracing, that they can start socializing with their exec teams?
This is not something that can happen overnight. And I'd
Hmm.
also say it's not that we have moved, 100% into skills within Stanchart. If you look at the company, any company, you've got certain jobs which are what I call fixed jobs, which is a huge regulatory concept, very compliant. When I talk about airline pilots, it's a real fixed job, right? So if you work in the airline industry, so within Stanchart, we talk about three types of jobs. Some jobs which are very fixed, either because of regulatory compliance reasons, etc. You've got then some jobs where they've got a bit of a flex in them, and
Hmm.
then you've got the full flex job, which is almost like being agile on steroids. And we talk about in companies, all those three jobs exist at the same time, right? And I'm not going to ever talk about the fixed jobs in companies to
Hmm.
go fully skills based. That's not going to happen, right? I mean,
Hmm.
again, airline is a good example. An airline pilot for us, we've got people in trading roles, or we've got risk compliance roles, which are sort of fixed. But then there are enough jobs which are flexible, and then they are fully flex jobs. So one thing is being quite circumspect that there's not a magic wand that you put overnight and everything sort of changes. The other
Yeah.
thing I will say, which I speak quite a bit, is you got to go narrow and you got to go shallow. We started the
Hmm.
journey by doing a strategic workforce plan for our business,
Right.
and really talking about, which most companies do. I mean, most companies start forming a view of the next 5 years. What is the size and shape of the organization going to look like? What jobs will we need more of, less of? What we did was we took that strategic workforce plan, but actually then started shifting the dialogue, not just in terms of the jobs that will go away, but actually start talking about what are the skills that are going to be needed lesser and more of. And again, so trying to get skills into the vernacular. And then the
Hmm.
first thing that we did, the first big at scale stuff we did, was building a strong culture of learning in our company, building a
Hmm.
strong
Hmm.
learning habit. And I think that's something everyone can do. So, what we
Yeah.
did was pivoted the way learning was being delivered, started talking about future focused skills in a big way. Also started democratizing access to learning. So we changed our learning management system, which is AI backed. People consume content on the basis of their preference, but linked to their jobs. But then what we did from a softer perspective is built a culture which we've been at for the last 5, 6 years now, where learning was really celebrated. So, 6 years ago, we said we're going to have a global learning week every year. And we've done it every year, and it's become bigger and bigger and bigger. This year, we had 78,000 hours of learning over 4 days. And,
Hmm.
the way we do it, it's all virtual. People learn as teams. We now have countries where there are watch parties, where people, come together in rooms with coffee, uh, and learn together. We have everyone, say, the chairman and CEO always do a session on Global Learning Week. We call external experts. We do a debate. So every year, one of the higher, most anticipated event is we talk about a topic, either sustainability or AI, or what AI is going to do to jobs in banking. And we actually have a debate between people in the bank, which is live, right? So the idea that learning and curiosity doesn't always need to be traditionally how companies have done learning. So for me, start with a part of the organization and start with one process and go quite deep. In our case, we started
Hmm.
with strategic workforce plan, and then we picked up learning, and then we went very, very deep. The skills based deployment, which is what we are doing, actually happened much later. So, it
Hmm.
was much later when we had piloted our marketplace that was successful, that we started moving towards deploying on the basis of skills. So I always say go narrow, go shallow, and actually trying to introduce the skills in the language of the company while continuing your traditional processes is a very sensible first place to start.
Just the framework that you've talked about in terms of thinking, which is where, narrow and shallow, looking at the job structures, what is, really fixed flex, full flex, or partial flex, full flex, and those whether and again being forward thinking, talking about, what is sunrise and sunset jobs, and how our skills and sunrise and sunset skills. So I think those are really frameworks that are very valuable. And obviously, every organization has its own needs and requirements. So as you listen to this, you got to take what applies to you. But I think the key is, as Sanj mentioned, is narrow and shallow. Make it work once, and then obviously scale through that. And obviously, talking about culture of learning, that's music to our ears. That's what we have hear about, democratizing learning. That needs to shift as well, because as you said, that people learning the same thing, what you learned 5 years ago, is probably irrelevant in the world of AI. In fact, everything is changing so fast on a weekly basis. What you learned 2 months ago is probably going to change next week. So the stuff that you're doing in terms of that flow of work learning, hot skills, is definitely we believe a lot of organizations should adopt.